Pucks with Haggs
is brought to you by Prize Picks.
Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Welcome in to the 231st episode, I believe, of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I'm your host, Joe Haggety. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns for the Boston Sports Journal, so check out bostonsportsjournal.com. Get a subscription there. I also do a weekly Q&A with the subscribers, so it's a great place to subscribe and get your Bruins content, get all your Boston sports content. Great, talented group of writers there. With me today, longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Rink Wrap. It's a link to it on X and on Facebook, and I'm in the hockey news when they do their major issues. Yearbook recently came out. Money Power will be next, followed by their Future Watch, which is the prospects issue that happens in the dead of winter. So when it's 32 articles, the Bruins article, they send my way. And so I've already gotten my Money Power assignment. So time to get with the CEO and start talking about where the Bruins are at as an organization.
I love it. I love those kind of issues. I love the money and power stuff. The evaluations for the NHL franchises just continue to go up and up and up. Business is very good with the TV contracts and the revenue and everything else. So that's outstanding, Mick. Looking forward to that.
We actually get to talk about hockey.
I know. Let's get into that because this team is something we want to talk about here. Off to a very encouraging start to the season. Headed on a West Coast trip. Some nice wins. Ended it with a loss against Tampa Bay, where it was a slow start that ended up dooming them, but they still fought back, and it was a 4-3 game against a good Tampa Bay Lightning team. Your take, Mick, on what we've seen to date as they head out on a West Coast trip that's going to be fairly defining as far as testing them against some good teams, putting them in some tough environments on the road, continuing to sort of give us a long spate of games here to really analyze what we're seeing, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, no team is perfect right now. And the Bruins, who were 3-0 going into the matinee against the Lightning, got an 0-2, an angry 0-2 Lightning team that came in pretty resolved to say, hey, look, we might not be your daddy anymore, but we're a little mad about the way this thing started for us, and we're going to put you to the test and every inch of the ice. And they did. In the neutral zone, both blue lines, they played hard. They cut off the Bruins. It's the best game I've ever seen Anthony Cirelli play. He looked to me like he's now the number one center on that team, regardless of how John Cooper configures his lineup and how he balances the four. And he goes for balance. If you're having Conor Geeky, even though he's 21, if you're having him center your fourth line, you're trying to roll four and beat down your opponent, because that kid is 6'4" and destined for the top six, and from what I can see. So,
well, Mick, it's funny. It's funny. Hold on. Let's pause for 1 sec, because it's funny that you mentioned that. It was very noticeable how good and skilled Conor Geeky was in that game. And he was only out there. I looked down. He only had 5 minutes of ice time when he went out there and dominated on a shift. And you noticed him like the whole time he was on the ice. And you're exactly right. I was thinking to myself, how are they only playing this guy 5 minutes right now based on what I'm seeing in this game and what he's doing? And it's totally to your point, the depth that they have and sort of the veteran guys that they have that he needs to kind of push through to get there.
I think he's going to wind up succeeding Braden Point as a top six center on that team. I don't know what the timeline will be for it based on Point's contract, but Point's had a hell of a run there. But it's also he's at the long end of that run in that spot, I think. And and Conor Geeky looks like he's ready to take forward steps for that club. So the Lightning, I don't think they're going anywhere. They're still a formidable opponent, and they played angry yesterday. And the Bruins were not ready to meet the challenge in the first period, and they got themselves in what turned out to be an insurmountable hole. And I think that problem with a game like that is as forgivable as it is, being a holiday matinee, you're 3-0 coming in, you're going to go on the road. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
these things are going to happen to a team that's like the Bruins. However, teams they're playing, watching that tape and saying, this is what you do. Now they've given the Western Conference a blueprint, and they're going to Vegas knowing that a team that's just as good as the Lightning is going to try to do the exact same thing. And that game tomorrow night is going to be a pain in the assamont as a result. And the Bruins are going to have to work very hard in order to survive that game. This is going to be a
Yeah.
rough trip. I'm not saying unsuccessful, but
Yep.
they gave themselves a lot of work to do by letting that tape get out there.
No, I agree, and I think they were headed for a tough game in Vegas either way. I think that's always a tough spot for them these days because of how good Vegas is. Because of Vegas, Vegas is Vegas, and I think every team that goes into Vegas as the road team has a very difficult time just based on where it is and what it represents, and the distractions and everything else. Especially when you go there early, right, and you're there for a couple of days like the Bruins are to start their road trip. But I do think the one thing that stuck out to me, honestly, about that game on Monday afternoon that was a bit concerning to me was just that it was Boston's best players that didn't come ready to play at the start, and it's the guys that are supposed to be the leaders on that team and the guys that are both supposed to be the pulse and the tone setters. And it really starts with Charlie McAvoy, that first shift, when he was way too casual with the puck, just like forgot. I think that Jake Gunsel was behind him, like lost the awareness of that there was a guy behind him and was coming up the ice so casual out of the D zone with the puck. And Gunsel just comes up from behind, takes the puck from him, and it turns into the first goal. And I hate that tone that set for the game. It told me that Charlie McAvoy was not ready to play and was not ready to go at the start of that game. And if that guy wants to be captain of the Boston Bruins, you can't be the guy that's not ready to play at the start of that game. And Charlie McAvoy is a good player. Charlie McAvoy is a good person. He's a good defenseman. He's the best defenseman on that team. He's very important to what they do. But there continue to be times, lapses, points where things like this happen with him and good players take advantage of it against him. That, I always wonder if he's a true, number one guy. And this is actually a question that we got from, I'm skipping ahead to a question that we got from one of the readers. And actually, I'll read it right now because it was right in here. McAvoy is good, but not great. He's not Chara. He's not Cale Makar. Other teams' best players solve him too easily. He's not a great power play quarterback. And that's from M Hall 333 on Twitter. And it's harsh, but it's mostly true. You know what I mean? He's not a Norris Trophy candidate, and I don't think he's ever going to be a defenseman. Like, does he have moments like the Four Nations when he was blowing up Connor McDavid and basically won them that game and was a huge emotional, physical force? Absolutely. And he's got tons of offensive talent. He's a great skater. He's got great skill. He's got all the tools. But I just think there are times where he has lapses in his game that are always going to keep him from achieving that highest level of greatness. And I also wonder if that guy, I feel like, I know this is a big swing, but I feel like that guy can't be your captain if he shows up to games not ready to play and it impacts it like that. And I know it's only one loss and it was after a great start, but I just don't think that can be the guy at the top of the pyramid on your team if he has moments like that where you see it and you're like, he needs to be much more ready to go all the time and be the guy setting the tone, not guy waiting for somebody else to set the tone and he's going to follow. It just wasn't a good leader moment from my take.
Yeah, yeah, can't really add to pile on to that, but I'll say that Charlie McAvoy was not a power play guy at Boston University, and he's
No.
been asked to learn how to be a power play guy in the NHL. And we're talking about a guy here who has tremendous power skating ability. And
Yep.
because he covers the
Yes.
ice so aggressively and so formidably, everybody thinks he should be a power play guy. And even though he skates like a great offensive defenseman, I've kind of come around to a point with McAvoy where I tend to think that that it's his inner Scott Stevens that is going to emerge as more the identity of the player in the second
Yeah.
half of his career, more than the inner Scott Niedermayer. I think the inner
Yeah.
Scott Stevens is really more who he is as a player, off the threat in the the offering the threat of the big hit, discouraging the lazy zone entry, and really, I think in today's game, having a clear cut Ray Borkish number one is not a prerequisite to winning. It's a great formula to winning and a great formula to success, but I don't think he has to be a clear cut number one to be a success in his career, in his position. If
Right.
is there if the identity emerges for him to be, yes. Can he score off the rush? Can he create offense off the rush? He can. He's a much better player in motion than he is in a stationary position. That's always been
Yep.
him. Torrey Krug, just the opposite. A great player in a stationary position, and not a winning player in motion, because he just didn't have the foot speed to transverse 60 feet of ice through the middle of the rink, the way McAvoy can.
Yeah.
It's different kind of a thing. Matt Bartkowski had McAvoy like athleticism, very similar player athletically, but he didn't have the ability to translate it into the game that McAvoy does. Brad Stewart, whom the Bruins got as the featured player in the Joe Thornton trade in the fall of 2005, was supposed to be the successor to Raymond Bourque. There were mitigating factors on why it didn't work out for him here, but here was a guy who could fall asleep on the play, and people would razz me for using the I coined the term hockey narcolepsy where it concerned Brad Stewart, because he'd blow coverage like Bartkowski would in set situations. But you could also see him go back, completely just disarm a player, take the puck away, curl up the ice,
Yep.
very Bobby Orr like, and then make an 80-foot pass right on somebody's stick. He had that
Yep.
ability. But he didn't have the right makeup to make, but he wound up winning the Stanley Cup as a top four, quasi top three defenseman with the Red Wings in 08. So I think that McAvoy, the sky is the limit as far as what he can do for the Boston Bruins, but I don't think it's being a point machine. And I don't think it's going to be a power play machine. I think, it's something
No.
that they're going to have to try to get other answers to along the way here, because I think trying to shove that down his throat and force that on his career is going to be to his detriment in the long run. I think it's better for him to get some opportunity, maybe second team on power play, but at the same time, focus on what makes him really good.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think the sky is the limit for Charlie McAvoy anymore. I just don't. Like I think that's what I'm saying is we need to, I think, have different expectations for him. You know what I mean? Maybe lower the expectations a little bit that he's not going to be Ray Bourque, that he's not going to be Zdeno Chara, like that he's at a little bit of a different level. And then maybe I think you're a little more okay with some of the mistakes because you understand he's got limitations. There's going to be times where there's going to be brain cramps and things like that happen. But I basically equate him to Drew Doughty, and I think he is a Drew Doughty-esque defenseman, very similar to that player, where he is not going to be overwhelming with his offensive skills as far as production goes. He's probably not a power play quarterback. He's definitely not like a Cale Makar that's going to get you like 25 goals and be a threat to get like 80, 90 points, something like that. He's not going to be that kind of a guy. But he is he's a very solid defenseman. He's certainly a top pair, top four guy that will get you double-digit goals, that will get you 50 points, that will play in all situations. Is a physical player that will change the momentum in games and will sometimes wake you up and drag you into the fight with the way that he plays if he's in the mood to do that. And if he's in the right frame of mind to do that. My problem is, I guess, the consistency piece of it. And that's where I call into play, or I wonder if he's ever going to actually be the right guy to be the C when the consistency isn't there. And there are times when you see it when, um, like it was clear to me he was not ready to go in that game, you know? And you can't have your best player, your leader, your guy that's at the top as that guy. That you can't ever be that. You can't ever not be ready to go in a game and sort of be that casual about it and set that tone if you want to be the guy at the top of the heap, at the top of the pyramid, you know? Like I just it's it I feel like, and to be fair, the Bruins top line didn't have a great start either, and I'm not sure Pasternak, it wasn't as visible as McAvoy, like sort of being not ready to go, but they didn't seem like they were tremendously ready to go either, and it took them a little while to wake up as well. But by the end of the game, you saw Pasternak blocking shots in the empty net, drilling Nikita Kucherov, and doing everything humanly possible to try to get that game to overtime and to get a point at least. You know what I mean? And I think you saw that as the game was going on. And it's that game sort of like, it doesn't crystallize it for me, but I start to think about like who should be captain of this team, who should be wearing the C, who the real leader of this team is. And the dial starts to move a little bit more towards Pasternak for me than it does for McAvoy as eventually the guy that should be the captain of this team when I see pieces of evidence like that. And it's not set in stone. It's not concrete. It's going to be an ongoing thing, obviously, for a while before the Bruins and Marco Sturm and the team decides where they're going to go with the captaincy. And I think it's ideal right now to have them both wearing A's and sort of try on that leadership and see how it fits. But I think this is also part of the reason why the Bruins thought and felt that Zdeno Chara coming in and being a mentor and being an advisor was the right thing to do, because I think there are moments like this where when Zdeno Chara was captain of this team, that would have never happened. And the captain certainly would have been ready to go on a Monday afternoon against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Zdeno Chara I'm talking about. And it all speaks to maybe like, a learning sort of like thing that's going on right now. But like you were also talking about guys that have been in the league for a long time and probably shouldn't have to learn that they need to be ready to go on a Monday afternoon against Tampa Bay.
Can't argue with that. I just think that McAvoy, when I say the sky's the limit with him, I say it in the context of he can help a team win the Stanley Cup as a top three
Oh yeah.
defenseman. That's my
Yes.
point. Not that he's going to
Yes.
hit thresholds or that he's going to be captain. And you know what? I just think he's in an earlier stage of his career than Pasternak. And I always thought Pasternak should be the
Yep.
next captain of this team. I felt like last year he really proved it. The way he handled
Yep.
himself, his compete level was incredible last season. I just, not speaking relative to McAvoy as much as just about Pasternak, he really became
Yep.
the leader of this team through the worst of days. And I felt like he was very deserving of the C. And and I guess I understand with a new coach coming in and a bunch of new veteran players from the outside that they want to let the room settle itself, very similarly to what Harry Sinder did following the blockbuster that Milt Schmidt did with the Blackhawks to bring in Phil Esposito, Ken Hodge, and Freddie Stanfield. They already had Teddy Green and Ed Westfall wearing the A's. Johnny Busick was the C for 1 year, and Harry Sinder took it back and made that an A, gave Phil Esposito an A. They were allowed 4 A's at the time. And it wasn't until the WHA broke the Bruins up and then Johnny Busick re-signed with Boston, that he got the C back in 73, 74. So these things have a way of unfolding in serendipitous kinds of ways. I really hope Costa does not miss his turn as captain. I feel like he's earned it. He deserves it. And not only that, the most important thing, he's the best choice for the job. And so to me, he's been, the succession plan without a coaching change and without the cataclysmic personnel changes that were made necessary by the collapse last year, then I think that he should have inherited. It should have mantle should have been passed and the baton should have been taken because he's been running and ready to go with it. And so and Charlie's day, it could definitely come. It's I love this kid, but I still consider him a guy who's kind of I think of hockey careers in 4 stages. You're the baby stage where you're broken in if you're really high end talent. You're 18 years old, 19, you're touching the NHL. Connor Geeky, stage 1. Charlie
Yep.
McAvoy is still to me in stage 2. Stage 3, I consider the player's prime. And where and nowadays 35 is the new 30. Players, because of science and
Yeah.
training and technology and equipment and nutrition, are able to play the high end hockey later and deeper into their careers, except when you get a real anomaly like John Rattel, who gave Boston
Yep.
36-40, and they were brilliant. And then 4 is when you are on the back 9 of your career, but you're still contributing in ways that your body allows.
Yeah.
This is and McAvoy to me is still a stage 2 player. Pasta's a stage 3.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I disagree. I think McAvoy's 27 years old. I think he is what he is at this point.
Well, you're
And
thinking
it's a
like a
great player.
coach. You're thinking accountability, and I don't disagree with their accountability stance at all. That's how you
Yeah.
get there. I'm talking
Yep.
calendar.
Yeah. I know. I think calendar too. I think you're in the NHL, unless you're the rarity. When you're 27, and I know defensemen are a little bit more late developing than forwards to get to their best level. But I think at 27 years old, you're in the prime of your career. It's the best you're ever going to be, and like he is what he is. And like I said, I think he is an excellent player. I think he's a really, really good defenseman. I think most of the time he is an emotional catalyst, and he's a guy that will be and is a great leader. But like it was one of those instances where he wasn't ready to go during the game. At the beginning of the game, it ended up helping cost them the game. And he also didn't talk after the game was over. And that's another part of it too, where there's too many instances where I think the accountability with him has to be there if he wants to be captain. He has to be able to answer tough questions after a tough loss like that. And when he didn't play well after the game is over, and it's like, it's those kind of things that I think I think about when I think about the
That's where they
guy.
miss a captain right now. That's where they
Well,
miss
that's
it,
when,
because Marchand last year, he would have had McAvoy in that room
of course,
after
and
the game.
McAvoy needs to make sure McAvoy is in that room, like he needs to, like I and I think because I guess I'm critical of him at sometimes, and in this particular case, because I think he's got it in him. You know what I mean? I think he's got greatness in him. I think
He
he's
leaves
got
you
that
wanting
in
more.
him. If he can push it to a little bit of a higher level as far as all of it goes, and even the accountability track, like it's in there. And it's a matter of being more consistent with it, being consistent day in and day out with exactly what he is doing all the time, and always sort of having that in mind of what would a leader do in this situation? What is a leader supposed to do? And that's being ready to go. That is being the model for everybody else. That is being accountable at all times. It is all of those things. And I think you have to get to that the highest level of all of that stuff before you want to be the captain of the team, my opinion. But the reason I think I harp on it with him is because he's got it in there. He's got all the stuff. He's got all of it. It's just a matter of being more consistent with it. All right, let's move on and talk about our sponsors a little bit. Prize Picks, we love, is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and it's super simple. Prize Picks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Pick doesn't count it as a loss. You can now win up to 2,000 times your money on Prize Picks. They also offer Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Our picks for this week are Dylan Larkin, more than 20 minutes of ice time; Sam Reinhart, more than 1.5 shots on net; and Tage Thompson, more than 2.5 shots on goal. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Let's also let everybody know that you are listening to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, and we ask you that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Celtics All Access on CLNS, the NBA History Channel, Patriots Press Pass, and Bruins Ringside YouTube channels as well. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. By the way, speaking of all the Celtics stuff, Mick, did you see that the Celtics media and the Celtics coaching staff played a media game yesterday, a 12-minute media game?
The way Josh Brogadier described it on Channel 5 in the news last night was they stopped the fight. they threw in the towel and then the coaches played, and then they let the media play against each other.
57-4 in a 12-minute game, Mick. 12 minutes of basketball.
I saw a little bit of B-roll on Channel 5 when we were watching news last night, and just like little clips that they showed the way the coaches were moving the ball around and throwing up these jumpers and swish, and and these guys are like, it's funny watching these guys go for the block, flying through the air. They're really desperately playing. The media was really trying, and they were just in over their heads, and I'm sure it was great fun for all.
What would the score be if the Bruins coaches played the Bruins media in a 12-minute hockey game?
This was suggested yesterday on X. I can't remember if it was by Conor Ryan or Evan Marinofski, but one of those guys suggested this possibility. Maybe it was Scott McLaughlin. But anyway, I wrote back but the PIMs would be through the roof. The penalty minutes.
Oh, seriously. But I mean, it was knowing Joe Mazzulla a little bit. I'm sure that they were waiting for that with all the questions, the second guessing, all the stuff that goes on in the media.
They probably had meetings.
The coaches are like, we're going to show them how much better and how much more we actually know about basketball than they do,
and how much we can apply it. It's a wonderful opportunity to explain it in terms that the media can understand.
Yeah, exactly. So that was funny. I loved watching the short clips of the bloodbath that was going on there between the coaches and the Celtics media. That's fun. I think that's also good, just like as a sort of bonding thing and as a way to sort of build a relationship with the people that you cover. I think that stuff is fun and great. So kudos for the Celtics coaching staff for doing that.
If the Bruins coaches played against the media covering the Bruins, it would be like that episode of South Park where the Red Wings play against the kids from South Park, and they literally beat the ever living snot out of the kids from South Park, and then celebrate the Stanley Cup, giving each other teary eyed hugs. It's that part of the celebration. I think was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on that show.
Absolutely, that's a good call. All right, we always love Cap 77's questions in the Q&A with Boston Sports Journal. So we have it here. This is a 4-part question. It's very, very early, but given the huge transition on the ice and behind the bench, good start so far, very encouraging. Great to see a newcomer like Fraser Minton notch a game winner. I can't disagree. Like, we've talked a lot about the Tampa game, Mick, but in general, power play looks way better. Entries way better, way more creative. You can see that they've worked on that stuff, and they're making really good plays entering the zone on the power play. I really like the formations that they have, the way they're going into the zone together, the options that are there, the way they're making play. Like, it really done well. Penalty kill has been way better. They've shown enough offense. Frankly, offense, I don't think has been a real issue. Obviously they don't have enough offense to afford, I think, like falling asleep at the start of a game and not playing in the first period like they did against Tampa Bay. They don't have enough they don't have enough ability to overcome that, especially against a good team. But they have had enough offense to be competitive and to win 3 of the 4 games that they've played. The goaltending has been outstanding, I think. They've gotten pretty good offense up and down the lineup. The top line, I think, has been good, aside from that last game against Tampa, again, where early they were not great either. But you've gotten production from all the different lines. Jordan Harris has been outstanding playing the last couple of games in place of Hampus Lindholm. And that's one of the early sort of red flags on this team is Hampus Lindholm getting hurt that early and sort of like questioning, like, is this going to be like a constant like lower body sort of issue for him coming off the kneecap stuff last year. But I've loved the way Jordan Harris has played in the 2 games, and I think it speaks to the depth that they have on the back end now, where not only do they have Jordan Harris here, they have Michael Callahan, who can play down in Providence. They've got a guy in Brunet, who's an up-and-comer in Providence as well. I think their defenseman depth is great right now. I really do. So I think there's so much to like, Mick, about what we've seen so far, and it makes me even more emboldened, like I've been, to say this team I think is going to be a playoff team, and certainly is going to be vying for the wild card at the end of the season. Is going to be right in the mix. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
They should be able to weather, because the strength of this team is not like the San Jose Sharks, where you have long and enormous offensive potential. But in the
Yep.
meantime, you can't keep the puck out of your own net. That
Yep.
kind of team is the team that's going to be in the lottery for years running. The Boston Bruins are strong on the back end. They have excellent goaltending, one of the best tandems in the league. And both of these guys have played really well and have elevated the rest of the team. They do have their issues. There is a learning curve. They do get flurries of quality, high danger chances against these guys who keep them in these hockey games and give them opportunities to win. A better power play increases that chance. And so I think that, and the other thing is, it's difficult to be a tight defensive team if you're asking your your defenseman to activate and be part of the attack. And some of these guys you will see behind the opponent's net when there's a weak side situation and a puck that they think they can be first to, they go and get it. So there is definitely not a fear. There's no institutional fear in this back end group to not play the game all over the ice. So if you're going to try to do that, you have to have belief in your goaltending to do that, because it's not going to be perfect and you're going to give up some odd mans. And so right now, the back end is going really well for them, I think, especially in light of the fact that Hampus Lindholm is out of the lineup here, and that
Yep.
Jordan Harris has stepped in and really looks like a guy who they can integrate and ask more of as he goes. He's got to endure a little bit of Matt Grizzlick factor back there on left D, where he gets run over a little bit because he's not a big guy, but he's strong
Yep.
legs, this kid. Very,
Yep.
very rugged looking physique. I think that he'll get overmatched with size, but not with toughness. He will hang in there. He will battle, and he's got ability to bring the puck forward. He really does have some skill, and he's got a great mental makeup back there. So I think he's a terrific add-on to extend the left side depth. They don't have the same kind of depth on the right side, which is a little bit of a concern. That have to identify a guy who can slide over left shot, play right side.
Yep.
Maybe Harris is that guy. Not sure. It'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah,
They might need it.
will be, but he can make plays. Harris, I've seen enough in preseason and regular season that he makes plays with the puck in the offensive zone. He can see
Yep.
teammates and make great passes to set up goals. And that play where he scored the goal, Mick, for me was just outstanding hockey IQ. You know, he recognized the situation as soon as he got the puck out to Pasternak and just took off, and basically was playing forward the rest of that shift, and
Yeah.
turned it into a 2-on-1 where he scored the goal. And that is like the highest level of hockey IQ, when you can recognize those plays and sort of shift your thinking and do something else based on what you're seeing that turns it into a great opportunity for scoring. Not only that, but he turns Sean Cooper into a raving lunatic on his bench, screaming at his team because he's all pissed off at the way that they took advantage of them in
Right.
transition. And being too
He
deep
had
in
no
an
challenge
offensive
on the
zone.
weak side there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
like
completely off topic, so we don't forget, Willie O'Ree is
yeah.
90 today.
Yeah, happy birthday, Willie O'Ree. I did see that on social media. So happy birthday to Willie O'Ree. Also, 37 years ago today, Gimpy Kirk Gibson hit the home run off Dennis Eckersley in the '88 World Series, which is one of my top like sports moments of all time that I remember so vividly, being like a 14-year-old high school freshman when it happened. That was a pretty awesome World Series and a great moment.
Well, in
Roy
tribute
Hobbs
to
just come to life.
Eckersley, I say yuck.
That's right. All right. Number 2, how surprised were you at McDavid's extension in AAV?
Well, I think he put his money where his mouth was, or his money where his mouth where his money was. My mind on my
Yeah.
money and my money on my mind. Yeah, so if you want to win and you think the Oilers have a couple of years window here, the best thing he could do for that hockey team was take the deal on a short term that he did, revisit the matter in a couple of years, and when he has a better idea of whether or not he can win in Edmonton. And he believes in that team. I heard him on 32 Thoughts, the interview they did with him, and he's definitely dialed in and believes that their group can get there. And so I think took a contract that enables them to make other moves and plays in a very kind of Tom Brady-ish kind of that's Brady's legacy in New England. Whether it's accurate or not is another
Yeah.
question. That's for the football people. But that was his legacy here, to a guy who always took a little less than he could have gotten in order to. Hey, Brad Marchand did it for a decade in Boston. He hit stride in his career. He definitely could have gone for more, and he didn't. He left a lot on the table with the Bruins or through his prime years. So I think guys who want to win, that's what they have to do in a cap league. I don't think there's any way of getting around that.
Yeah, and but I also think, Mick, the term, it tells me that that's McDavid saying, "All right, Edmonton, you've got 2 years to get me a cup winning team. The pressure is on now, and like once the 2 years is up, I'm probably going to start looking elsewhere, and gonna be maybe go to Toronto, go to New York, go to somewhere else, a bigger market, and sort of be adding on to another group to try to get his cup somewhere else." And I that's my read. In addition to what you're saying, because I agree with you, like taking less AAV, no question, he's allowing them to get another player or two to add to that roster depth to try to build a cup winner over the next couple of years in Edmonton. But I think it also gives him a whole lot of power and influence based on the short term of it to almost be kind of like Braun-esque too, where he can dictate a little bit of what they're going to do, bringing players in and sort of like, saying, well, if you don't do this, this, or this, I'm going to leave at the end of the 2 years. And he probably will anyway, if they don't win the cup by then. But I think there's an element to that as well. Him sort of flexing his muscle and also looking at it saying, I'm going to win a cup before I retire. And if it's not in Edmonton, it might be somewhere else, 3 or 4 years down the road.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's his leverage. His leverage
Yep.
is to take his services elsewhere. I'm sure the Los Angeles Kings, with the impending retirement of Anze Kopitar, would absolutely love to see history repeat itself all over again. And
Yep.
just like it did in 1988, when the Kings
Yep.
completely transformed their identity in LA and became a celebrity attraction through the acquisition of Wayne Gretzky. And so uh, there's a lot that could happen in the next few years as we see what goes on with the Edmonton Oilers. But I think that it's a smart move for him to preserve his leverage and not sign for 10 years and just throw away his own influence. And not saying
Yep.
that he would ever. I would never suggest that he is going to try to become their general manager and leverage
No.
deals. But I do think that he has given himself an ability to decide that he's satisfied or dissatisfied.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. The way pro sports works, especially if you're a player like him, if you've got a short-term deal, you will have a seat at the table, at least for have a say of what's going on, and you will be listened to a lot more than you would if you were locked into some deal where you couldn't go anywhere for a long time. I think
Yeah.
that's just business. All right, I'm sure it would have been nice for fans and writers to have that elite free agent class come to fruition next year. But as you guys have stated on the podcast, players covet stability and lifestyle, hence the new deals for McDavid, Eichel, Connor, Kaprizov, etc. And yes, there are definitely some of the top drawer guys that are signing contracts now that are taking away from what would have been an unbelievable free agent class this coming summer. But Mick, there's still some really, really good players out there, and there will be, like, just based on the volume of great, really talented players, impactful players that were looking at free agency this summer. A lot of them are still going to make it, and it's going to be a much better free agent class this summer than it was turned out to be last summer.
Yeah, I mean, the Bruins wanted to do more this year too, but there were a lot of 11th hour deals done with
Yep,
team players in their existing teams where they were about
yep,
to leave in UFA that did 11 those last minute deals that suddenly turned the Bruins to Tanner Jeannot, Sean Corrali, and Mikey Isamont and said, okay, if
yep,
we can't have that, we're at least going to have this. And so they had a plan B, and this is their plan B. That's what we're looking at here. It's a much more solid approach than what happened when things didn't when they weren't able to get Noah Hannafin 10 years ago.
yep,
So that this is a situation that the Bruins are going to have to farm up their prospects, primarily playing NCAA, and see how that goes and weigh it against. And every year is a new year, and they come there and we'll see who doesn't do 11th hour deals next year and when we
yep,
get to July 1st and 26th and because at the end of the day there's no guarantees that the players that we think are going to be there are going to be there. Maybe a
yep.
few, and there's competition in the 32 team league, and the Bruins I don't think are going to win too many of those head to head against teams like the Rangers, who are I think are entering a new era of impatience with their group.
Oh man, they are off to a horrendous start. And yeah, I think the Bruins can compete with the Rangers for players. They're going to have the cap space. They're going to have the ability, especially the way that this team is playing right now, um, showing that I think they're going to be on the upswing again this year, and they've got some talented young players coming in, and guys are going to want to play with Pasta. Like, let's face it, he's a draw as far as a guy you could potentially play with around the league.
That's a good point.
So I think they're not going to have any shortage. Like, especially like look at a guy like Martin Hs. Would he want to play with Pasta? Yeah, I think so.
Hell's to the yeah.
Yeah. So like I think there are guys like that out there that will probably pick them, and I think they'll be competitive with players. I don't think that's going to be a problem. It would have been if like they got off to a rough start, like the Rangers are, and they look like they're a mess. That different story, but like we'll have to see how things develop because I'm very dubious of the Rangers in general. I think, and I've said this for a long time, I think their ownership group is not good. I think it starts at the top, and that organization is constantly in disarray, and there's a level of chaos to that team. I mean, they got rid of Jeff Gorton, who like now is getting re-upped in Montreal. With his GM, who
They're
those guys
also
know what
three
they're
and one.
yeah, those guys know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like clearly Jeff he knows what he's doing, Jeff Gorton. And for the Rangers to just cast him aside like they did after he built that whole organization and like just teaming with young talent tells you everything you need to know about how idiotic the Rangers can be. So like I'm always going to doubt them as long as they have decision makers doing the stuff that they're doing over there. Even though they're the Rangers and they're at MSG and like it should be like a first class operation, it really doesn't feel like that to me with some of the decisions that they make. So,
Well,
um,
hell, when they had a good record in the early stages of last year, and Chris Drury sent out a letter to communicate to the other 31 GMs that, hey, listen, we're not happy with where we're at, and
right.
we're going to make some moves, and we're putting Truba and Kreider on the market. And
Yeah.
then Chris Kreider suddenly has an injury and is talking to the media about three things that he's battling through, and that completely dissolves that market. Truba
Yep.
goes, and so who takes the fall? Peter Laviolette. It
Yep.
is what it is over there, and right
Yep.
now,
But it wasn't
I feel like they've
Laviolette.
wasted a window.
Yes, of course they did. And I have not been impressed with Chris Drury as a GM. I know he's a good player. Not impressed. And I'm not impressed with the guys at the top making the decisions over there either. And I think it's a mess, and it has been for a long time. And I think that's going to play into like in the way that they've treated respected veterans like Kreider and Truba is going to have an impact on them being able to get other players to come in there, even though they've got the money. So, all right. Which non-playoff teams from last season will make it this season, Mick?
Um, ooh, boy, you teed me up for talking about the Bruins, but
Yeah, I was going to say the Bruins are number one in my mind. That's the number one team. non-playoff team that's going to make the playoffs this season. I don't
I
think
would
there's
have
any
been
doubt in
saying the
my mind.
Rangers, but I'm not so sure now. I
Yeah,
feel like things are so volatile there that they've won 2 games on the road, they've lost 3 at home and not scored in any of them, which is
right.
NHL history made. Um,
Yep.
it's really bizarre, a bizarro start for them. I'm kind of a little afraid to say them. Um, boy, I think Anaheim is probably the team that I've been thinking about all summer. I thought that their team was really good last year.
Yep.
I'm not convinced, and I'm not anti-Q. I just am not convinced that they didn't jump the shark in getting rid of Greg Cronin,
Yep.
and
Yep.
who had given that team substantial improvement in consecutive seasons to bring them from a category like the San Jose Sharks to the cusp of the playoffs and being a team that thinks that they can make the leap this year and get back in. And so he wanted to get a guy there to take him in the next stage of that team's development and their trajectory, and we'll see if Verbeek is right. I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
That was the team that I've had in my mind.
That's a good call. I mean, they have a lot of great young talent there, so I think that's a really good call. They could be out in the West. I could see them making a move this year as well. Great calls right there. Like I don't. Yeah, the Penguins maybe under a different coach. If they can get like one last sort of hurrah out of like some of the older veteran guys that are there that are definitely long in the tooth. Maybe that's a team that could surprise. I like the way they played at the start of the season, but we'll see once injuries hit and once the regular the long marathon style regular season is going to be tough on the older guys on that team.
We've
So
had
we'll
a
see.
feisty camp, feisty play from their support guys. It's almost like
Yep.
they're saying, like, people are writing us off. There's a lot of
Yep.
that there right now, and I
Yep.
think that
Yep.
can only take you so far into an 82 game slate.
Yeah. The question is that sustainable for sure? All right. This is from Glenn McCrae on Twitter. Can Swayman not play in back-to-back games? There was a lot, Mick, I think, of people. I got it on social media at the start of the game on Monday, questioning why Jeremy Swayman was not in net for the Monday afternoon game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was not surprised that Jeremy Swayman did not start the home opener against the Chicago Blackhawks. I was not surprised that Jeremy Swayman did not play Monday afternoon against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they are very much making a conscious decision to get both goalies going, get them both on track, give them both a good playing time at the beginning of the year to get them on the right note before they get into the regular season. And maybe you're going to see one of the goalies start a few games in a row. But like to the point, Marco Sturm has been very clear also, you're not going to see a guy start 6 games in a row in net for this Boston Bruins team. And there is definitely going to be more of a balance. It's not going to be 50-50, but is it going to be 60-40? Is it going to be 65-35? There's going to be a split closer to 50-50 than last year as far as the playing time goes. And that means Korpisalo is going to play more and Jeremy Swayman is going to play a little bit less. And I think that is the right call. And that's exactly what they should do because I think that's going to get the best out of Jeremy Swayman.
I agree, but I'd also say this. I think it's really dangerous to look at last year and use it as a basis for anything this year regarding
Yeah.
Jeremy Swayman.
Yep.
I looked at
Yep.
him and I think back 2 years, and I use that as a basis for Jeremy Swayman. When I think back to last year, I want to use Corpusalo as a basis for this year. And the one thing I would say is that had you slanted everything towards Swayman, you might lose Corpusalo this early because he's been
Oh, yeah.
excellent. And so both goalies have really given an excellent account of themselves so far. Both have elevated the Bruins and made them better than they are behind average goaltending. And so, uh, I think that after the things that Corpusalo had to say last year, now granted, I'm sure the Bruins said back to him, "Yeah, we get it. Yeah, you deserved it. Yeah, you should have gotten better than you got, but we had to try to get this guy going." And so there was a lot of starts that you would have gotten that he had to get because of that. Well, it never wound up working out, and Corpusalo has said his piece. And then he comes back into this season and he competes, and he's just as good as he was. If he had fallen on his face and he had a crappy camp, that'd be one thing. But Corpusalo has stood up and backed up everything he said at the end of last season. when he expressed dissatisfaction over the of his lack of opportunity, and
Yep.
and so the only move this year was to go even Steven out of the gate and say, okay, show us. And he's showing them. So now what do? I don't think you have to worry about it. Right now, both guys are going, and the team is better for it. I'd say, I mean, at some point here, we're all expecting that Swayman's going to start inching forward with a couple of significant starts because of the opponent, the occasion, whatever. And that'll make sense when it happens because he's their guy. He's the one who's making 8 point something million.
Yep.
But uh, we're trying to set a foundation and send messages to players and establish what needs to be done coming out of the gate for this year. I think of what Cap Corpusalo went through at the end of last year. This is the only way to do this right now.
Yep, I agree, and I had zero problems with it. If people were complaining, "Oh, you're paying all the Swayman this money and he can't start back-to-back games," that's not the point.
It's too late.
You're
It's
paying
too
him.
early for that.
Yeah, you're paying the money because he's good. Like, and you're paying the money because of the way he plays in the playoffs. Like that, there, he will get his share of starts, and he will probably get at least 60%, or if not more, of the starts this season. Probably closer to 65, somewhere in there. Once we get into the teeth of the season, but you're especially like early going, where they have 13 games in 22 days to start October. You're going to see both goalies a lot, and it makes total sense to do that. All right. This is from RNDC2. Hey, Joe, couple of nice wins. Seems the goal mouth has been the emphasis this year on both ends of the ice. The slot area, I would say, yes. If I remember, the Bruins have two players that scored over 20 goals last year. Will jamming the front of the net lead to enough scoring as teams start game planning against it? Are teams really going to game plan against teams trying to jam the net, Mick? I don't think you're going to be able to game plan against teams that are trying to get pucks into the slot area and trying to get bodies to the front and shots to the front. Like, that's just the way everybody plays hockey. Like, that's not really a game plan. That's just the way, especially with a team like the Bruins, where they're not the most skilled in the world. You're going to see funneling shots to the net. You're going to see bodies to the net, and you're definitely going to see some goals scored there. But I wouldn't say that it's been obvious to me that jamming the net has been the priority early in the season.
I think the team is just playing so much harder compared to what you saw. If
Yes.
your snapshot was based on what happened after the trade deadline, the only decent stretch of hockey that the Bruins played was probably the first month of Joe Sacco coaching them.
Yep.
After the
Yep.
20, from 20 to 30, maybe 20 to 35 is probably the only stretch of good hockey the Bruins played last year that you could actually
Yep.
look and say, is there something we can compare to last year and say that this is something that really is something we should be? Anything else you're looking at right now is really fundamental to how you get a win in the NHL. And if you didn't see it much from the Boston Bruins last year, it goes with the dysfunction of the entire campaign. So I'm looking at this as being a return to uh, how you win, what it takes, and put your mouth guard in and get in there and let's go. And so, and yeah, and to me, let's get 20 games into this and find out if they're still doing it. Then you can start evaluating personnel and find out if we have the right mixture of players there in lieu of elite talent and beyond David Pasternak. Then how much grease do we have in this lineup really? That's what we're going to find out as we, like you said, get into the teeth of the season. This will reveal itself then, but it's very fundamental to how any team needs to win.
Yeah. It's just hockey, like, it's just what you have to do to win in the NHL is crash the net and get second chance opportunities, get rebounds, and get the sort of defense in disarray and in chaos around the net. Like, that's hockey. You're not going to game plan against that because every team tries to do that. I think great point that you're making is we're noticing it more this year because the team is playing harder consistently. I think in the early
Watch some
going
of the
than
other
they played.
games.
Yeah.
Watch some other teams
Yep.
play other teams and see if you don't see
Yep.
a lot of the same. If the guys are flying by because they think they can score without stopping at the net and digging in, and
Yep.
getting in the lanes and bumping with defensemen and screening goalies and tipping pucks and
Yep.
jamming rebounds and taking some gloves in the face, then I'm telling you right now, that team is heading for trouble if they're not doing
Yep.
it.
Yep, absolutely right. Crazy alert! Exclamation point on Twitter. Who's your best? Or actually, this was a mess. This is one of the questions in my Q&A for Boston Sports Journal. Who's your best guess to provide secondary scoring from the forwards on this team?
Ooh. Um, Secondary scoring, meaning somebody besides Pasta and Geeky,
Right.
and the incidental points that Elias Lindholm collects by being the
Yes.
defensive conscience of that line.
Yes.
So the bottom nine, who's going to pop from the
Yeah.
bottom nine? Um,
Mick, I would say this. I would say Victor Arvidsson. I think I've liked his game, even though he hasn't like flashed on the score sheet a lot. I like what he brings to the table. Like, you notice him out there, even when he's not scoring and he goes to the hard areas, and like you can tell he's going to get some goals on the net front on the power play, and you can tell also he's hard to play against. Like, he's annoying. I think for the other teams, I've definitely noticed that. And I like the third line. Like, I think that Isamont and Minton are going to get their share of offensive chances and get their share of production. Like, Jeannot is what he is. I think he's a big body. I think he's going to, score on some plays around the net, like he scored on a rebound. I think he's going to have plays like that. I don't know if his hands are going to allow him to be like a 20 to 30 goal scorer, just based on what I've seen in the early going. I think there are offensive opportunities that kind of die on his stick because the hands aren't great, or die in his area because he can't convert them where a more skilled player might. But like, I've also loved how hard he played, the hits he's thrown out. Like, you notice him because of his physicality and because of his size and because he intimidates the crap out of players on the other team and he's hard to play against. Like, you notice all that stuff, and I think that makes a huge impact. So I think that third line and that second line are going to do okay. I think they're going to have their share of offense, and Zaka's been good too for my money in the early going as well.
Casey Middlestad played his best game that I've ever seen him play. Um,
Yep.
where you see him now, he's starting to figure out how Zaka plays, because Zaka
Yep.
is a high effort, low skill player. Zaka's got beautiful skating, and he tries real hard, and he never quits. But he
Yep.
is a guy who's going to have he's not the guy you want with the puck on his stick 5 feet from the net with 5 seconds left in a game, you're losing by one. He's not the
Right.
guy that you want in that spot. You don't want it to be him. But you want him to be on the line that helps make that happen, create the
Yep.
situation. Arvidsson, I think I think that the Bruins are kind of like thinking, look, we lost Marchand. Victor Arvidsson gives us a piece of Marchand that we lost. He doesn't give us all of
Yeah.
Marchand, but he gives us
Yeah.
a personality, and an intention and an effort, a pugnaciousness that
Yeah.
we
I like
no
it.
longer have. So in pieces, you're getting some of Marchand with Arvidsson in a right-hand shot, or at least in the right wing. I can't remember if he's right shot, but he's in back nine. He doesn't skate point A to point B with great speed. Neither does Jeannot, by the way. He doesn't.
Yep.
Jeannot can get up speed over time, but he doesn't. He's a little like Pat Maroon. He doesn't have great acceleration, in 20-foot races. So I think
Yep.
there's a limitation there as well. Mikey Isamont teased not only us with that spectacular shorthanded goal in New York, he teased himself. I saw him try to steal Monday against Tampa. I saw him try to steal a puck at center ice, and and because he saw nothing between himself and the backup goaltender that was in that day, and it's Johansson. He tried to steal it, and when he didn't get the puck, it was at the end of his shift, and you could see him just shrug his frustration on his way back to the Boston bench. And I'm thinking, I hope doesn't happen to him what happened to Steve Leach with the Bruins back in the early 90s. He joins the Bruins after the 1-for-1 for Randy Burridge, gets there, scores almost 30 goals for them. The next year he comes out and he was playing like Blue Mel. He was trying to fire the puck through the net, through the boards, and out through the O'Neill building. Every time he got near his stick, he was trying to rifle a cannon. And
Yeah.
he had a lousy year because of it, because he was too preoccupied with finishing before he was in a position to finish. And
Yep.
and I felt like Isamont is now trying to play to get his next goal rather than just settle in, play your game, do what you do well, and let these opportunities present themselves, just like the one in New York did. They will
Yeah,
if you play the way you can play.
he was very quiet in that Monday game, very quiet for a player that needs to play with energy and physicality and all that stuff. Like I did notice that as well on Monday. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Let's thank our sponsors real quick. Got to give some love to Prize Picks. We love them. They are, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Also, thank you for listening to the Pucks with Hagg podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. Mick, thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
Everybody else out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for interacting. Hope you liked all the questions we asked of yours. We'll have another episode later on in the week, and we'll see you at the rink.